Good morning. Welcome to the first meeting of the Dingwall and Seaforth Area Committee. I'd just like to call for any apologies for absence.
We're all here.
No apologies. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? One from Angela, Councillor Angela.
Yeah, good morning. It's on item 7, the Dingwall and Seaforth Capital Programme. I have a family member that's going to be having some improvements to their council house, so I just wanted to record that.
Thank you.
And they're delighted. I should say, probably add that.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to appointment of chair of Dingwall and Seaforth Committee. I'd like to ask for nominations for the post of chair of the Dingwall and Seaforth Area Committee, please.
Can I nominate Graham Mackenzie, please?
Thank you.
Could I second that then, please?
Thank you. Any other nominations, or we move forward? Okay, thank you. So if Councillor Graham Mackenzie, are you willing to accept?
I'd be honoured to accept, thank you.
Thank you. I'll now hand the chair over to Councillor Mackenzie.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Di, and thanks to the members for their support in this. I personally am quite excited about the new committee. I think that we have an opportunity now to move things forward solely for Dingwall and Seaforth, and to concentrate all our efforts on behalf of our constituents. So once again, thank you, and I look forward to a very positive committee meeting, I hope. Moving on then, agenda item 4, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. And I think Alec McKinlay is here to present that. Are you, Alec?
Yes, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Thank you for inviting me along this morning, and thank you for allowing me to present the Dingwall and Seaforth Q1 report and answer any questions that you may have on it. I know you've got a busy schedule, but I would appreciate 30 seconds of your time just to make you aware that the service has started a 12-week consultation on unwanted fire alarms, and if you haven't seen it, I would urge you to go onto the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service website and take part in the consultation and promulgate it to whoever you deem appropriate. I can share the links with you, and I can share the document with you as well. But I thought I'd just bring it to your attention because it is one of the local priorities that we report on. So having said that, I would like to open it up to any questions, the report.
Okay, members, over to you. Margaret?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Alex. Yes, it's a very good report, and I see that Dingwall Station, 100% availability for the first appliance, 83% for the second. I think that is amazing, and I have to say, I think they must be really busy, because living on Craig Road, I'm forever seeing the appliances driving out, you know, going to accidents or fires. So I think we have to be very grateful to them, and if you could pass on probably our thanks, heartfelt thanks at this moment in time. I think you know, the whole fire stations all over Highland Council area are working harder than they've ever worked before. So we do appreciate it, and they are valued. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Dingwall is one of our busier RDS stations. I really appreciate your kind words and support there. And yes, the availability is excellent for an RDS station. I think not only is their commitment worth mentioning, as you have done, but also the employers that serve the community by allowing the RDS staff off to attend fire causes. Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Alistair?
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on being appointed chair. By the way, can I can't see your face at all. Your camera must be showing that that's you now. Thanks, Alec, for the report. And like Margaret, I congratulate the team in Dingwall for their commitment. And like you say, that wouldn't be possible if you didn't have the support of the employers. And it is a very, very difficult and a very busy station. There's only a day goes by that you don't see them. One thing I do notice is that you don't seem to have any female officers in Dingwall at the moment, if I picked that up right. Because I think there was a campaign at one time to get some retired firefighters in from females, but I don't know how that is going. How are you? I know certain areas and certain stations have a recruitment drive. I take it Dingwall is up to speed with the level of staff that they've got available, and it is fantastic to see, the first appliance having 100% availability, and I think the second one is at 83, if I remember rightly, which is excellent as well. So, as Margaret said as well, during the COVID, they were working really hard, and there was a lot of pressures on that put on them. But yet the commitment was there to deliver the service, and we are truly grateful. And we feel, as we all do in Scotland and with all our fire services, we do value the commitment, and just pass on our thanks to them. Thank you, Alec.
I will do. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor McLean, Angela.
Thank you, Chair, and my congratulations too. Can I ask, Mr. McKinley, I know that that the report concentrates on the key performance indicators, but sometimes there's a backstory, and I agree with what my fellow ward members have said. The fire service and the retained firefighters have all been key workers, and they have done a tremendous amount of work during the whole of this pandemic. And I wanted to ask a question about, Alistair has mentioned about some female officers, and we did have that in Dingwall. But I also wanted to ask, have all the retained firefighters, have they all received their COVID jabs, and are they all up to date with that? The reason I ask that is that I remember having a conversation with a couple of the firefighters, and I had my jabs because of my age, and they hadn't, even though they are key workers, and they're probably out seeing more people in the community than I am. And I had thought that they and the police would be priorities, but they didn't seem to be. And I just wondered, is that the case? Especially, at the start of the report, you talked about the free home safety visits where they're going into homes, and I know that they did one when my father was at home during COVID, and they were very good at coming in and checking, especially after he had some other equipment put into the house. I also wondered about the Safer Highland and the driving ambition, because you say at the start of the report about working with young people, and how is this going to be, given the restrictions on COVID, how is this going to manifest itself as it moves forward? Is that going to be a challenge for the fire service to kind of ensure these programmes still take place? And I wondered too, although it's probably going to be in the next report, given that there's so many holiday makers now in the Highlands, and there's a lot of wild camping, about fires, uncontrolled fires, is that having any impact on the service? And I know that's not actually in this part of the report, but given this time of year, perhaps it's an opportunity to kind of restate the fact that you've got to be really careful if you're camping in the Highlands, especially when you see what's on television at the moment in other countries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. You covered a few points there. I was taking some notes down, so if I miss any out, or I don't answer your questions, please remind me at the end of it. If I can touch on the female aspect, female firefighters. Dingwall presently has a really good complement. It's at its full complement, and although we're always recruiting, they're not one of our stations that we're prioritising. However, every time we do a recruitment campaign, we always try and make it as diverse and inclusive as possible, and we always have a specific night for a female firefighter to come along, tell them a job, and support that. So we are constantly doing that, and that's something that I hope to have in the near future, a female firefighter. If you look at all our other RDS stations, some of them are absolutely, and you'll probably find in the more remote rural communities, we have more female firefighters at the RDS station. So although it's all good news that Dingwall has a good complement, it's got a good availability, that is one thing that we do need to improve on, is the female firefighter complement there, and we'll work to do so. Home fire safety visits, you talked about several aspects during the COVID testing. To be honest, Councillor, I absolutely agree with you. It touched the nerves with me about the vaccination of firefighters. Unfortunately, a decision was made at Scottish Government level that the firefighters were not a priority to receive vaccinations. I have to say no was Police Scotland. So Police Scotland and firefighters were exactly the same. We weren't deemed priority. What I will say, what the service has done to support our members, by far we had the best PPE provided to all our firefighters: masks, sleeves, our firefighting kit, aprons. Our PPE was second to none that we provided. Our stations were all made very quickly COVID secure. We worked in training in isolated bubbles. We had a number of measures in place to support and make our stations safe, as well as our firefighters. But we also worked on our core duties, attending fires. Various jobs that we do, we couldn't do safely during COVID, such as home fire safety visits. We prioritised areas that had no smoke detections or were at risk of crime. But now restrictions are lifting. We're now back fully supporting our home fire safety campaign. You talked about driving ambitions. Now restrictions are lifted. That will be back on the table as well. So we'll be supporting those initiatives. You asked, had all our firefighters been vaccinated? I can't give you a definitive yes, but I do know, although we weren't prioritised, in the feedback that we've got, the vast majority have, through their own GP, have received the vaccinations. You went on to talk about, Councillor, wild camping and what impact the holidays at home are having on the fire service. I don't like the term wild camping, because there is a community of wild campers that camp responsibly and leave very little, if no footprint at all when camping. What I would term them, and this is my term, so is dirty camping. People that light the campfires, camp and leave their rubbish behind. That's not wild camping, that's absolute dirty camping. With regards to their campfires, unfortunately, legally, we are not an enforcing authority. We cannot stop them from lighting the campfire. Obviously, if they're on a site of scientific interest, we can and we will extinguish the fire. If we feel that the campfire is unsafe and is threatening property or the environment, or is at risk of getting out of control, we'll extinguish it. But we cannot go along and just extinguish fires that are camping. We don't have that authority. However, police, there is certain rules that if they light a fire within a road, the police can go along and get them to extinguish it. I do think, with regards to wildfires that you touched on, Councillor, potentially there has been, well, over the last 10 years, there's been a 10% increase in wildfires generally. although climate change doesn't cause wildfires, it certainly exacerbates the size of the wildfire. And you all know the history of the wildfires we had at Melvick and Poles Hill, two of the largest fires in the UK history, covering 25 plus square miles, and the environmental impact of doubling the carbon emissions for Scotland in just 10 days. So there is a risk of the staycations, the people that normally go abroad, trying camper vans, trying camping, lighting the campfire, there is that risk. But what we're doing to eliminate that, we're engaging with landowners, we're engaging with the Wildfire Forum, we're on every social media site putting out safety messages. We don't teach camping campfire safely, we just say don't light a campfire. We also put out at times when all the triggers have met wildfire warnings, and that's to not just campers, that's to landowners and everyone not to do any burning of the land, moor burning, etc. During these times. I think I've covered all the points that I wrote down. Councillor, if I've missed anything out, please come back to me.
No, you covered everything, and yes, you're absolutely right. Wild camping is not the same as what's happening in the Highlands at the moment. I absolutely agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. Can I associate myself with the remarks of all three of my fellow members in terms of expressing how grateful we are to have the sort of teams we have in Dingwall. They are always open to engagement, and could you please pass on formally our thanks to your team. In terms of the report, just very quick points, and I think we all noticed the lack of the females. If we were to recruit a female, are there facilities in place for her to become a full member of the team immediately?
Yes.
Okay, that's that one. The second one was the deliberate fires, and the part of the report that says they're related to antisocial behaviours. Is this antisocial behaviour largely outside, Alec? Or are there instances of it happening indoors? And lastly, the fire alarms, UFAS, is that largely down to malfunctioning fire alarms, or is it more as anything else? So that was all.
Okay, so if I touch on the antisocial fires, they are predominantly outside. They can range from anything from unattended barbecues to just malicious lighting of fires. Yeah, so in answer to your question, are they outside? Yes, predominantly they are outside. You touched on the UFAS. There's a number of reasons why unwanted fire alarm signals are activated. Generally, they are false alarms or done by cooking fumes, poorly sighted smoke detection. We do engage with our partners, and we give advice accordingly. But if you recall at my introduction, I would urge you all to go online and please, there's 5 options. The fire service isn't prioritizing those 5 options. We're putting out to consultation to see the best response for attending an audit fire alarm. So I do urge you all to take part in that survey. It does finish on the 11th of October, so there is a little time left to do it.
Okay, thanks for that, Alec. I fondly remember when Dingwall Academy first opened in 2008 through the system that was generated at that time, that the firefighters were daily visitors to the academy for a period of time till it all sorted out. So thanks for that. I think that's just remains for me to thank you for coming along to give us your report, and best wishes to all the teams.
Thank you, Chair, and can I also thank you and all the councillors for their continued support. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Can I just say, in relation to the chair, thank you for your congratulations. We'll see how that goes over a period of time. But in terms of vice chair, which we didn't mention, it's my understanding that Margaret, since she was vice chair of the previous committee, continues in that role. I hope I've got that right. Okay, moving on. Dingwall agenda item 5. Dingwall 20 mile an hour speed limit and associated traffic calming. And we've got both Lisa, I think, and Ross here with us this morning. Is it over to you, Lisa?
It sure is. Yes. Good morning,
On you go.
members.
Good morning.
Nice to see you all this morning. If it's okay with you, Chair, I would just quite like to share my screen.
Of course.
Just put a couple of pictures up. Bear with me. Okay, so I will. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will briefly, very briefly, talk through the paper and just show you a couple of pictures. So obviously, as you know, in line with the Council's desire to introduce 20 mile an hour speed limits across the Council area to not only reduce the number and severity of road traffic collisions, but to also provide all road users with an environment that encourages cycling and walking, it is proposed to make permanent the 20 mile an hour speed limit in Dingwall. This is around the 20th 20 mile an hour speed limit to be promoted around the Highland Council area. The hierarchy of street design that you can see on your screen is determined in the National Transport Strategy, and it outlines that street design should be prioritised in terms of active travel users over all other road users. Specifically looking at Dingwall, the temporary road traffic regulation order for the existing 20 mile an hour speed limit currently in place in Dingwall, the one that was put in, via the Spaces for People programme, it expires, as you know, on the 19th of December this year. In order to make this temporary speed limit permanent, the new road traffic regulation order has to be in place prior to the expiry of the temporary one. The proposals to allow this speed limit to become permanent can be seen in appendices 1 to 4 of the report you have, with the schedule of roads to be included listed in appendix 5. The guidance listed in 4.3, it shows you what is used when designing 20 mile an hour speed limits, and it states that the existing mean average speed of vehicles should be below 24 miles an hour to allow a 20 mile an hour limit scheme to go in without any traffic calming. So for this reason, as you know, traffic calming is proposed for Burn Place and Back Road to allow the 20 mile an hour speed limit to go in. And as part of the scheme, it is also proposed to put traffic calming on Old Evanton Road, and this is to improve the safety for the community and in particular the school children in that location. To just show you pictures, I thought it might be helpful just to show you pictures of what the proposals look like. Moving to Back Road there, you can see the sort of technical drawing for Back Road in Appendix 1 of your report. You can see there the proposal is for a build out, the reason being this will be the feature that will reduce speeds the most in this location, but it will also allow safer crossing for the pedestrians that are using that location, as they will have half a carriageway to cross effectively. You can see the existing mean average speeds in the screen in front of you there. So you can see at that location, before any of the temporary measures went in, the speeds were very high for a 20 mile an hour limit. And you can see the reductions there have been 4.1 going towards the school and 9.1 coming away from the school since the temporary features have gone in. Moving to the Burn Place ones, the technical drawings are in Appendix 2 of your report, and you can see from the picture this is Bach Road in Inverness, so it would look like this effectively. So the proposal is for 2 sets of speed humps, reason being to get the speeds low enough over the entire length of the road. You can see the Burn Place speed data there. So before anything went in, before the temporary features or the speed limit went in, they were obviously higher than 24 miles an hour. And the temporary feature that's in there at the moment has brought them down to 23.2 in one direction and 21.3 in another direction. And finally, The picture here is the proposal for Old Eventon Road. The image you're seeing is from a primary school in Thurso, Miller Academy Primary. There was a raised table we did for the pupils up there. As you know yourself, there's a substantial number of pedestrian movements throughout the day up in that location, Old Eventon Road. So the proposal is to create a wide raised table to reduce vehicle speeds and create an area for, you know, pupils and the wider community to cross at that location. And that just gives you an idea of what it would look like in terms of what we've done before. And we've done quite a number of these around the council area. So moving back to the report, as you can see in section 6 of the report, consultation has been carried out for both the proposed 20 mph speed limit and the traffic calming. Due to public complaints regarding the temporary traffic calming that did go in on the 834, residents were consulted on the design options prior to the final proposals being taken forward. As per 7.2 of the report, objections remain outstanding, and they are in the form of 12 outstanding objections for the Burn Place speed cushions and 2 objections for the remaining traffic calming and the 20 mph speed limit. And you will see the recommendations are listed in 2.1.
Thank you, Lisa. Before we start any debate, can I just thank you and Ross for the enormous amount of hard work and effort and time you've put into all of this, and what has been a very difficult negotiation for you. It must be the longest consultation on record, starting pre-pandemic, and you've both committed yourself to the project, so thank you for that. Members, can I open it up for debate? Margaret.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I agree with you that there's been so much hard work put into this, and it saddens me literally what I've got to say, because I'm really concerned about it. You know, I know now we're a new committee, and we really should start as we mean to continue, and that is that we should allow and we must to take heed of local accountability. That is so important. So in all our decisions, we have to listen to our constituents and act on their behalf if at all possible. And, you know, I know there's a huge amount of work, and we have some that are quite happy for it to go ahead. But I would think myself personally, talking to people, that the majority are really concerned about it. I mean, I'm not against 20 mph. I've always said it's a good idea. Personally, I think it should be the whole town. And we should have a sign at the 4 entrances saying that you are entering a 20 mph zone. Please adhere to it. Thank you. Words like that. Because at the end of the day, you know, if it's the law for the town to go 20 miles per hour, then it's an offence if you go over that, and we have to deal with the problem. It just deeply concerns me that, you know, when cars go over these cushions, they do speed up a bit to go over the cushions, and it does cause pollution. And I mean, that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the speed going over for the areas, for the houses, because we know all the problems that we've had in Hill Street, and it's not gone away. And I think if there was cushions, that would make it worse for the areas at the moment. So I just think that this is not the best plan for the town of Dingwall. But I'll wait and see what the other members have to say. But I'm really, really concerned about it. Thank you.
Members, any other comments? Angela?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would also like to thank Lisa and Ross for all the hard work that they've put into this consultation. And the thing, my understanding of consultation is listening to what people have to say and coming back and having a dialogue with them. And I think over the last few months that has happened, and we're here today because there's still some outstanding issues where some local residents quite rightly have great concern over some of the traffic calming. I know that the Community Council have made their objections well known on their concerns, and we've had a lot of consultation on this very item. Just as a way of background, I would like to point out that 2 years ago, probably as now, at the start of before COVID, Ross and Councillor Patterson also attended an event I held regarding the condition of some of the streets in the centre of Dingwall, and it was brought about because some residents who have mobility issues and who have either mobility scooters or wheelchairs had asked for a consultation on the state of the streets in Dingwall. And during that consultation, we had Sustrans, Living Streets came up from Edinburgh. We had St Clement's School representatives, residents from a number of areas. And what we did is we went round Dingwall and we did an audit. And it's easy for me, because I don't have mobility issues, to walk round Dingwall and not see a problem. But what came out of that audit was where drop curbs are in the town and where they're not, and where they are convenient for people to use. But also, I think what was made clear to me was that the people that contacted me in the first place had tried to raise the issue, but as a council perhaps we had not taken that on board. And it's about putting yourself in the shoes or the place of the people that have the issue. Now, I raise that because over the last year and a half, Ross and Lisa have worked to make some improvements in the town. But also what came out of it was that there were cars parked over drop curbs, even where there was white T-bars, they were being ignored, that cars were not stopping for people as they tried to get over to the health centre. And to be fair, Dingwall Medical Centre also, Kenny Rogers also took it on board and made improvements to the potholes in the car park and was able to get funding to do that too. So working together, we made improvements to the centre and the town of Dingwall. And the reason I'm raising this is that often we put cars first. And what came out for me personally was that, and from Lisa's graph, was that what we should be concentrating on is walking, wheeling and cycling in the first instance, and putting the car, the motorist, to the bottom of that list. And I, as with others, have received a number of emails and petitions and comments, and they're all very justified. Their comments are valid. But we today are going to make a decision and whether to have a 20 mile an hour in Dingwall or not. Because if we do not put in some of the traffic calming that has been proposed in the plans today, then we won't be able to have a 20 mile an hour in Dingwall. And most people we speak to want a 20 mile an hour. And as Margaret has mentioned at the start, it would be good to say, please drive safely at 20 mile an hour. Please respect the 20 mile an hour signs in Dingwall. But we all see every day that that is not what's happening. People in cars, including myself and everyone else, do not always go at the speed limit. And we have to protect the walkers, the cyclists and pedestrians ahead of the drivers, in my view. And I know this is a difficult position we're in, but under all the information that we have been given by officers, if it's a 20 mile an hour, the speed has to be 24 miles an hour or below, unless some form of traffic calming is proposed to make it safe. And I really feel that not all of the traffic calming that was proposed originally through negotiations, that has been changed. And I think today we also have an opportunity to perhaps change or have options on what traffic calming goes in. I do agree Councillor Patterson's concerns about fumes, and that has been raised with us all, and which policy trumps the other, whether it's clean air or traffic calming. But the council, if it does bring in 20 mile an hour, has to abide by the guidance and the good practice. And we as local members have to look at what is in the public interest. And in the public interest is that we have to look at climate change and try and encourage people out of their cars and to walk and cycle and to be safe doing that. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Angela. Alistair?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Lisa and to Ross as well for all their work in getting it. It has been a tricky one, and I am fully aware of that, but really do appreciate the hard work you have put into it to get to where we are here today. The sad reality for me is that you can put a speed limit in a place, but unless you have traffic calming, it doesn't work. And that's the actual reality. I mean, I've been in the last few weeks, we were down in the Fife area, and it didn't matter where you went in all these towns and villages that were in there. There was 20 mile an hour, there was 30 mile an hour, but there was also traffic coming, and that was the only way. I spoke to one or two of the locals down there, and yes, they accepted initially that it was a bit of a hassle, but the only way it worked was because they had traffic calming measures in. You didn't go any further than Conan and Maryborough when the new Ben Wyvis school was opened. You know, my email box and my mail was red hot with the amount of complaints. But it's there now. It's been there for years, and it does work. We do get police officers. Sadly, not enough. I think we as members, we need to go and have word with our police. We need to get them out there doing speed checks at various times of the day. And I think it's very important that they're out there during the busy times, which is when children are walking to school. And it is nice. It's lovely to see children from Maryborough walking with their parents or grandparents or whatever carers to the school, and that's to be encouraged. I know it's not popular, but like I said, the only way you can get a speed limit to be operational is by having traffic calming, and that's the sad reality. I know of a young lad who has had life-changing experience due to a speeding motorist, and that person was in a village not very far from here, and that was down to a speeding motorist. And it does happen, and as I say, and I accept as well that in School Road here, just behind from where I am, they do have a wee race every now and again between the cushions in School Road, but we just phone the police and we get the police along, and we attend to that. Like Angela said, the whole purpose of this is to ensure that pedestrians are safe, whether it's young, middle-aged, old, and that we encourage people to walk. We are in a climate, and we have to encourage people to walk. And I know it's difficult, and I know it takes a lot of changes in that. And I accept too that when these traffic calming measures in. There will be a bit of disruption to the drivers. So be it. The whole purpose of this proposal before us today is for the safety of our pedestrians, and I certainly am supportive of it and the proposals that are here today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Who would be chair? I'm in a position where I don't think I could disagree with anything that's been said so far by all three members, but I'm not in a position to be able to support this at all. And it comes down to the basic local democracy. I think we have a situation here where we're all agreed that 20 mile an hour is the way we want to move forward. What we're arguing about or debating about is the methods to get to that point. And from my point of view, what screams out to me here is a need for some sort of compromise as we move forward. And my objection to this is the whole consultation process, the whole notion of community empowerment, the whole notion of localism, and indeed that's how we've ended up with our own area committee with a greater desire to move forward to localism. So if we look at the localism aspects of it, we've had a consultation period where we have engendered, it would seem, about 15 responses, which is disappointing, but I think consultation processes are usually disappointing. But what we do have is a strong majority of those responses in favour, responses are by objectors. We also have our community council, who met last Monday night, and I have to say, and I don't know if any of them are listening here today, but I tried to play a bit of devil's advocate in that particular committee by mentioning the reduction in speed since the traffic calming went in, and the possible compromise that might have been offered for Burn Place. But I have to tell you that to a man and a woman, they were unanimous in their view that they wanted to continue with their objection to this. And my view of that is that they would be entitled to come back to us and say, well, why bother? Why do we have community councils? Why do we have consultations if we aren't prepared to listen to what they're telling us? And finally, and I know Lisa and Ross, that now that you have no need to take account of petitions in terms of the statutory moving forward and all of this. But the fact of the matter is that we have a petition, which I looked at it this morning, has 382 signatories to it. Now, I would suggest to you in Dingwall and Seaforth terms, that's a huge amount. Excuse me. And while you have no need to take it into account, I think I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I didn't take it into account. So can we have perhaps if we look just specifically at what the objections, in my view, it seems to me, in my opinion, seem to be that there is the obvious one in Burn Place. And I think, Lisa, when you talked to us last week, you were able to suggest something that might see us be able to inch forward on that one. The second point of contention seems to be the build out on the back road. And I think that the community council's view would be that, yeah, if we need to have traffic calming at that position, then that would be best. It might seem a bit contradictory in terms, but that would be best served by a speed bump across the length of the road at that point. But there is one particular point that community council make that I think is going to be more difficult for it to come to some sort of resolution on, and that is the taking away of the lay-by for the bus at the co-op, and that has proved to be deeply unpopular, and with many people saying that it is likely to lead to more accidents rather than less. So my plea to you is, does this have to be an absolute decision today? Is there an option for compromise here? And if there is, how do we move forward? I'd also like to ask, no matter what happens today, the decision we make, the current traffic order runs out on the 19th of December. Does that mean that no matter what the decision is today, that will run until that point in any event? So that's me had my say, but I'm sorry, in terms of where we are as a community and local decision making, then I can't support these recommendations. Angela. I think you're on mute, Angela.
Sorry, yes, Chair. It's just I thought you, Margaret, was in front of me, but I'm happy to say I agree with you. I totally.
No, go ahead, Angela. It's fine. I'll wait.
Thank you. I agree with you. I mean, I'm always talking about community empowerment, and I absolutely respect the view of the community council and the residents. And we've had, as you say, a number of conversations about Burns Place, and that we all agree that traffic calming does not work there. It causes great hold-ups. But my concern is that we as members, we can look at the proposals that are put forward by Ross and Lisa, because they're the officers and they have the expertise, and Colin Howell's met with us previously discussing this traffic calming, and they seem, the officers are bound by the guidelines. In order to bring in 20 mile an hour, they have to bring in some form of traffic calming, and that's where they are tied. If the traffic calming, we can make the decision today that no traffic calming goes in, but it's my understanding that then the whole of Dingwall would go back to 30 mile an hour. So perhaps we could get some clarity on that.
Thanks, Angela. I'll come back to you in a minute, Lisa, once we've heard Margaret. It's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong here, that the housing estates and schemes would, even if we voted to take out traffic calming, the 20 miles an hour could remain in those, but you can clarify that. Give you warning, that's a question that I'm asking. Margaret.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, yes, I mean, I can't agree with you more. We need to take heed of the public that have objected. The petition, almost signed by 500 people, well, is signed by about 400 people, and the Community Council. And the Community Council count for quite a high number of people, because each member of the Community Council have been spoken by the public. They've been asked, is there nothing you can do about it? So we have to respect what the people say, and also we have to respect their quality of life and their concerns. You know, properties could be damaged with exclusions, and people might say, well, you know, what about lives? But that damages people's lives. But the concern that I have is the pollution and the fumes that come from the vehicles that go over these huge lorries, and they go over the cushions, and the amount of big lorries that go up Burns Place. I mean, it was terrible when we had that, what we have now. But I don't think the cushions are going to help at all, because it's just such a deep concern to people. And I'm happy if a compromise can be found. But one of the biggest things that people say to me is the 30 miles an hour in Old Everton Road. We'll do nothing about that. Now, I know that that's a difficult one because it's a long stretch and it's very difficult. But to the public out there, that is the one, since years, we've been trying to do something on that road, Old Everton Road, for years, and we've not. There was walls knocked down and we haven't resolved it. So that's what people want to see, is that area of 30 miles an hour, something there. I just we need to spend more time talking about it. And I know that Ross and Lisa have worked very hard, hours and hours they've put in. But the public, normally the public, there'd only be one or two that would object, but there's so many people objecting. I just don't feel easy with agreeing to this as it is. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, you've heard the views of all four of us. You're not in an enviable position here, I can see that, but perhaps you'd care to respond.
Not at all. I'd first of all like to say thanks for the acknowledgement from all members of the work of my team, because it's taken up a huge amount of our time. So I think, particularly Ross, I do acknowledge the thanks that you've all given, and we do appreciate it. In terms of the existing TTRO expires in December. So if no decisions are made, then everything would come out. Okay, so we have to go through a statutory consultation process in order to make that temporary order permanent. And that's what we're going through just now. Okay, in terms of the residential areas, their existing mean average speeds are such there's 24 or below that we could make them permanent with just signing and lining only. So I guess if we get down to the nuts and bolts of it, the bits we are discussing are, you know, Back Road, Burn Place. They are the ones, as we showed on screen. That's why we thought it'd be easy to show what it would look like, but also show it with your existing mean average speeds. So the traffic calming is proposed purely because the mean average speeds are higher than guidance dictates that they can be. So that's the position that we are left in. So I suppose that might help answer one, that we can do the rest of it and we can make that temporary order permanent for the whole of Dingwall. But I guess your decision is what you choose to do with the traffic calming, and then that dictates what happens with the speed limit, if that helps.
I know it was designed to help. I'm not sure, but thanks for the clarification on the residential areas. Okay. I made a plea. I think others have made a plea to see if there's any leeway here for any sort of compromise. Perhaps that's the one area you didn't come back to me on.
So what we
and
can
the bus
do,
stops,
because it's sorry, yep, well done. So because it's a statutory process, what we can do is we can take things out, but we can't add, because we would have to go through statutory consultation. In terms of the bus stops, we have consulted with all the emergency services, the bus companies, our public transport team. It's not a layover stop, and nobody raised any concerns with us about the bus stops in particular. And I suppose our view is that it will greatly enhance the safety of pupils at that location, and if there is a desire to see any speed limit change on that road, the existing speeds are, you know, over 30, so it would need something to allow the speed limit on that road to be introduced. So you've got the back roads, you've got the sort of proposed build out at the bottom, raised table at the top. We would also need to look at the middle. It could be along the lines of some paint markings, you know, the one that went on Untitled Avenue, because the speed's the whole way down there, as Councillor Patterson rightly said, you know, it's a wide, fast road. So we would be going against the Road Traffic Regulation Act, which specifically says that a TRO cannot be promoted if it is not safe to do so. So therefore, you know, we are unable to put a simple speed limit on that because the existing mean average speeds mean it would be unsafe to do so. Does that cover it?
I've certainly been approached by a number of people suggesting that the one way to do this without the need for a traffic order is by speed cameras. Has that been considered, and why has it been rejected?
So speed cameras are run by the Scottish Safety Camera Programme. Yeah. And there is specific criteria and a manual this thick. But you will see, I think we have 2 locations in the Highland Council area that have a mobile. We have no fixed site in the whole of Highland on a local authority road that justifies a camera site, and we have just got 2. They've slightly relaxed the rules, and we've just got 2 for mobile sites. So you have to have it's a point scoring system, and you have to have a number of points within a 3-year period. My understanding is to enable the cameras to come in. So it wouldn't fit the Scottish Safety Camera Programme guidance.
Okay. Any other comments or questions, members? Okay, this is the bit I was hoping we wouldn't be able to come to, but here we are nevertheless. I'm not going to rehearse what I've already said. I would not be prepared to support these recommendations as they stand. Can I just go around you all now then? Alistair?
I'm happy to support the recommendations.
Angela?
Can I just confirm there was a couple of options we had discussed previously, which was taking out the island in Burns Place and putting in other form of traffic calming? Is it the whole thing you're objecting to, Graham?
I think, no, I don't object to the whole thing. I think I've tried to make that as plain as I possibly can. All I'm objecting to is the way in which we're going about it and the means to an end. But as I understand it, the officers are in a very difficult position in that they're seemingly unable to be flexible in this regard. So it's either, I think the decision we're making is it's in or out, if you like. It's either traffic calming or no traffic calming. Is that right, Lisa?
So effectively, what we could do is Ross has got the scheme extents on a AutoCAD plan. So what we could do, if you're okay, we could share that plan and then we could discuss the specific bits. So back road requires traffic calming because the speeds are too high. So the option I
accept that bit, Chair.
Yeah. So the option you have for Burn Place, because the speeds, they're over 24 miles an hour, but they are lower than the speeds on back road. So the option you have there is to take out the existing temporary feature that's there, which I think we're all agreed we don't like. And you could basically, we could take it out, leave, because we've got till the 19th of December, we could leave the 20 mile an hour limit there and then go and get count data and see if the speeds are brought down enough. If they are, then great, you could put the limit in without anything. If they are not, because of the timescales involved, we would need a decision at today's committee from members to say, if that doesn't work, do we then remove the 20 mile an hour speed limit, or do we then put the traffic calming in? So that's the sort of position we're at with that one, if that helps. But I could get Ross to put up the extents if you want, and we can discuss that specific bit if that helps.
I think Councillor Patterson wants to come in there.
I just wanted to ask a question. If you do that, is it not cleaner that we just have another meeting about it all? Because, you know, there seems to be bits that some want to take out, but would we not have to go back to the Community Council? If we're going to be changing some bits, should we not run it past our Community Council again to see if that's okay with them? Because they have put in all these objections, and now we're going to maybe change some, but maybe not to what they have said. So I just wondered, you know, do we have to go back and consult if we start changing it now, today?
Ross, I'm going to let you in a second, but I think that's a good question. If we chose not to support these recommendations, but asked that this does not go away, but that, and I'm trying hard to phrase this properly, but you come back with a plan that is better received by the community. Is that an option for us? Go on, Ross.
So,
I think I can probably answer this for Lisa as well. To come back with new traffic calming proposals would require new statutory consultation, which is sort of a 2-month process. So to design and consult and then construct, we'd end up having to get rid of or at least bag the 20 mile an hour signs so that the 20 mile an hour becomes not in effect until we can get that decision settled, which creates a lot of confusion for the community because we're bagging up signs and then leaving it in abeyance as a 30 mile an hour limit for a short period of time. I think what we were getting at in the way of a compromise with Lisa was if members make the decision not to put in any of the traffic calming, the kind of compromise is that we just take out that one road and promote the rest of the town, and then we could come back and look at Burn Place, Mill Street, Back Road in the future. It would give you that, because I can, if you're okay, I can show you. It's probably often easier. So this is the limit as it stands, and this is the council buildings. If I take out Back Road, Burn Place and Mill Street, you then have all your residential streets, but your 2A routes through the town remain 30 and up, obviously Back Road as well. So that would kind of, if all the traffic calming is rejected, that would be your kind of default proposal for allowing the temporary TRO to become permanent. But it would allow us, if the funding is there, to come back and relook at the rest of the streets in the future. But it just means we're not holding off the whole TRO and having to revert the whole town back to 30 if we can't design something new. And in speaking, because I've had a lot of dealings with residents, I think any form of traffic calming on Burn Place is likely to have very similar responses to what we currently have, because the island, between the island and the speed cushions, we've not got that many options left open to us for traffic calming. Once it may all change once the pavement parking regulations come in and that starts to be enforced, because naturally we'll have half a dozen islands along Burn Place because all the cars that are currently on the pavement will be on the road. But that's probably 12 months away before the enforcement starts on that. So it's just that compromise could be that promote an order as I've got on the screen, or it's that way, as Lisa says, we make the decision to either remove the temporary island, get speed counts done, and then if members say today if the speeds are fine, we can leave the order in. But if the speeds are high on Burn Place, then we default to either traffic calming or back to this. I hope that clarifies it somewhat. It may or may not.
I think
it's one of these things. It's quite.
I think we're all. I sense that we're all pretty much of a one view on all of this. As I keep saying, it's how to get there. I personally speaking, if Burn Place, Back Road, and Mill Street were taken out of the order, I could be comfortable with moving that forward at the moment with a commitment to have another look at the additional spots. But that's just me. Any other thoughts, members? Okay, I'm going to have to press you for a decision then, folks. We've got Alistair supporting the recommendations at present, myself opposing them, and Angela, I'll come to you.
Sorry, Chair, you probably can't see it. We were all waiting because Margaret had her hand up.
Oh, I beg your pardon, I don't see her hand here. Go for it, Margaret.
No, you were asking if, anybody sort of agreed to that. And I was just going to say, well, it's a way forward. And I think we can't keep going round and round in circles, because it's, not fair on Lisa and Ross. And I know they're trying their best. But what you had suggested, Chair, I was agreeing with. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back to you then, Angela.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'm comfortable with keeping in the traffic calming on Back Road, because it's a route that the children take to school, and there's a path that takes residents through Maggie's Wood. So I'm comfortable with that. What I'm not comfortable with is the Burns Place, because we've all seen the back up of traffic. We've seen that it's not really working because cars are speeding up round there. So I'm comfortable with everything but that part. And I know that it will be a split decision, but as chair, you'll have a casting vote.
Thank you for that, Angela. Alistair, you want to come back on anything at all? Or?
No.
So the problem that we seem to be coming up with here, we've got all of a sudden there seem to be 3 options. One is take it all out, one is leave it all in, one is take out 4 options, in fact, take out Burn Place and leave the rest. And the 4th is take out Burn Place, Mill Street and Back Road and come back with another proposal. So we need to be very clear what we're voting on here. Margaret?
Yes, I was going to say that, we're not that far away, and it's a pity that we didn't sort of had a longer time or come back. This is going to take forever because I know that it's, I'm concerned about the Back Road, and I know that Angela's quite comfortable with it, but we need to discuss it more. I just feel that we're almost there for us to at least 3 of us agree, and it's difficult because what do? Do you take a counter motion? You take a motion, then a counter motion. So I think we need to have a straight yes or no, and then that can be discussed at maybe another meeting if it goes to the majority, because you've got the casting vote. And I know that what Angela's saying, but I can't agree with just Burn Place because I'm concerned about the 2 other areas as well.
Okay, I think we're in a position we have to make a vote, even although Councillor McKinnon was trying to introduce another voting member into the process there. The dog doesn't get a vote, Alistair. Okay, nut and bolt time. I think we're in a position where we've got 2 for, 2 against. I cannot possibly change my view after what I've said earlier on. So just to be clear, absolutely crystal clear, Lisa, if we vote this down, then the traffic calming measures in Burn Place, Mill Street and Back Road come out, but the rest of the traffic order goes forward. Is that correct?
So your traffic calming features are Old Eventon Road, Back Road and Burn Place.
Those are not...
Mill Street got taken off the table because
I remember that.
The after count speeds were fine.
Okay, well, this is not how I anticipated starting off our area committeeship or our decision making, because I feel that we're pretty much agreeing here. But if that needs to be the case, then so be it. But I would please make a direct plea to come back to us with proposals for Burn Place and Back Road in particular in due course, because we need to have a plan which I think is believed in by most people, but not the means to the end. Angela.
I mean, early on, Councillor Patterson mentioned that, if we put up signs for 20 mile an hour and drivers should agree to that. And the compromise that I think Lisa and Ross brought towards Burns Place was that we look at that, take out the island and monitor it until December. And the plea is that it's all of this, whether there's traffic calming or not, is down to drivers driving at the speed they're supposed to drive at, and we're all in agreement with that. And I feel that that it's over to drivers to respect the speed limit. And I'm sorry that we've come to this at the start of our first committee.
Yeah, I think all 4 of us feel like that, Lisa. But can you clarify? Do you Sorry, I don't mean to say. Do you understand? You understand better than any of us. But are you clear about what it is we're deciding? And B, can you at least give us a wee promise that you might be able to come back and have another look at it?
Could I ask, I think so everybody's clear, can I ask Ross to put the map back up and then we will agree on map what we're doing?
Oh, I
Is
hate
that
maps.
fair? Or not? So as it stands, it's my understanding that you wish to take out all the traffic calming. Is that correct?
Yes.
In which case the speed limit comes out of Back Road, out of Mill Street and out of Burn Place.
Yep.
So it will look like what Ross is showing you just now.
Yeah. But that's my understanding also, Lisa, but my request is that it be re-looked at. Is that possible?
It is possible. There are very limited options, if I'm honest with you.
Sure. Okay, I accept that. Okay, well, decision's made. I really want to give a heartfelt thanks to all four of us, I suppose, but to my three colleagues in particular for the civilised discussion we've had around this. I don't think any of us accepts that this is the perfect solution, and I very much hope that we can look at even if we could look at the two principal objective areas, if you like, separately to see if there might be a possibility of dealing with Burn Place in one way and with Back Road in another. So thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for your efforts on our behalf. And well, that's about it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Well, as I say, I'm truly distressed that they couldn't find a solution to that, and I hope that it will come back in due course, that we can take a fuller look at it in due course. Moving on, agenda item 6, the housing performance report, and I'll hand you over to Rory McLeod, I think. Yes, Rory?
Thank you, Chair. I've also got colleagues Colin Sutherland and Keith McKenzie from the repairs side who will be able to answer any questions on the repairs section of the report. I won't read out the report to you. It's fairly straightforward and self-explanatory, apart from pointing out the following points in it. We're meeting all of our performance targets on the report, apart from non-emergency repairs, but there are some reasons around that, and Colin can explain that. I'll point out as a highlight on the report, we've had experienced a sustained downward trend in gross rent arrears across Dingwall and Seaforth, which is testament to the work of our housing officers in supporting tenants through the pandemic period. There are some one-off improvements included in that, coming from improved payment cycles from the Department of Work and Pensions, but largely the attention of our staff on arrears has been very positive along that front. Homelessness is an aggregate figure across all of the Ross and Cromarty area. We've experienced a fairly flat sort of trend over the last four quarters, and probably anticipating that might increase as we come out of lockdowns and things start to move in the markets. But we will monitor that very closely and report back to members what's happening there. But if I'll open it up to questions from there if members are happy with that.
Okay, open to you members. I can find my hands here. Angela?
No, thanks, Rory, for the report. And I know that it's mainly talking about Ross and Cromarty. So is it easier to kind of drill that down to just Dingwall and Seaforth? There's a little bit about it, but kind of overall, it's Ross and Cromarty. This is where we are, green or. The
appendix is the aggregate figures for Ross and Cromarty, and we'll be talking to our systems development team about disaggregating those figures further so that you can see more drilled down to Dingwall and Seaforth. The figures in the body text, apart from homelessness, are all Dingwall and Seaforth specific.
Oh, thank you. Because I know that voids haven't really changed as much as you said. It's just kind of the average. And I wondered, probably Colin would have an idea. Is some of the voids caused by the state the property's in and the amount of time it takes for the council to then having to repair them, or could you perhaps expand on the reasons the voids delay?
Yes.
Because that impacts on the rent. And I ask that mainly because there's a couple I know in my own area where the tenant has left, but has left considerable damage, and it's the council that has to then pick up that bill.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor, and thank you, Chair and members, for inviting me along. The opportunity to discuss the figures for repairs and maintenance. We are experiencing at the present moment in time a very large increase in the number of void properties that we have, and we are doing our best to get through these as quickly as we possibly can. Particular focus on our furnished units for housing, homelessness, to get those turned around as quickly as possible. We are finding that more and more houses are what you possibly say is coming back in an unacceptable condition. The amount of repairs, the clearances of the properties is increasing. That could be due to the lockdown that we've been having, people getting less visits from Highland Council staff and such likes to pick up on these things. We're hoping that will alleviate itself as we move forward. We always have challenges with some tenants. There's no doubt about that. But specifically to your question, yes, we are seeing properties coming back in a poorer condition.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Margaret?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Colin's actually really answered what I was going to ask, because I was concerned about the time for reletting, and I know that they're trying to keep to the target, but it seems to be that I know I have people phoning me up and saying they're delighted they've got a house, but it's taking longer to get into it than what they expected. But maybe that's their expectation. And it must be difficult at this time to get the work done, But I'm quite happy with what Colin has told us. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. I'm just reading these the reports, and in 5.6 table 2, it's perfectly understandable why we're up at 22.7 in the light of COVID, but across the piece we seem to be below what is happening in the rest of Highland. Is there a rational explanation for that one?
We have been targeting specifically for emergencies and high priority repairs throughout the COVID pandemic. So we have continued to carry out those works, with our trade staff and in-house contractors or our subcontractors to do that, along with aids and adaptions. We've also been monitoring the routine requests, and our team leaders in building maintenance have been reviewing those, and we've been in our schedulers as well, been in regular contact with tenants to determine whether those can be amended in their priority and taken to either high priority if they're deteriorating or to emergency if they require it. So we have specifically targeted those. We do have issues with the number of subcontractors that are available and the amount of work that they are now doing, in the private sector as well. So that's reducing our ability to look at those. Some of them are still adhering to the COVID restrictions as such. They're not really wanting to put more than one or two trades into a void property at any one time, so that in itself can delay the turnaround. But see, we have been targeting specifically emergency and high priority works.
That sounds perfectly reasonable to me. The good news, I suppose, in terms of 7.2 is that the rent arrears deficit seems to be going down. That actually surprised me. I thought it might have gone up in lockdown periods, but does it surprise you, Colin? No.
I'll take.
Sorry, Rory.
Thank you,
Chair. Largely the opportunity has been around how we changes in our methods of communication with our tenants. I wouldn't say that this is mirrored in exactly that trend all the way across Highland, but we are experiencing some improvements in rent arrears. Given the way we've approached communication, we've focused on more electronic means of communication and been able to get people at home and deal with their issues. There's been support out there as well in terms of how we focus on our most vulnerable people and people who are experiencing moving on to benefits for the first time. It does mean that there's been some areas in, say, estate work that we haven't been able to focus on as much because we haven't been out and about knocking on doors. But as we do that, we're retaining our focus on keeping the good performance going in rent arrears, and I expect that's probably going to start to level off over a period of time rather than trend up or down.
Okay, thanks for that, Rory. It's encouraging to see that anyway, so well done to the team. Angela?
Thank you. I know that for a number of years I've kept saying that I really do think that Highland Council should be inspecting their properties at least once a year, and other housing associations, they do regularly check their properties, and I kept getting told by your predecessor that wasn't the money to do it. I do think it's a spend to save in the long run, and especially as we move forward with Housing First and other initiatives. It's a good way for us through perhaps the community planning partnership as well, for us all to kind of work together, because we are having a lot more vulnerable tenants and that may perhaps need some support, and if we don't know they need the support or we're not seeing them because they might be off the radar, I really do think that it's something that we should be looking at as a organisation. I would say too that it says at 8.3 that 277 presentations for homelessness. Do they all come through the homelessness route, or some of them through Housing First or from other agencies? And have they all been housed in Highland? Or is that just the requests? Because I couldn't see that in the notes. And then I'll let you answer that first. Sorry, Rory.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just start with the comment around inspections. Yeah, I am certainly conscious of the need for us to have a clear understanding of the condition of our properties and how our tenants are treating our properties and what support they might need to help them maintain their homes and help them report any repairs to us. And part of that is a focused approach on our more vulnerable tenants, ones that we know about through our own devices or ones that may be reported through our partnerships. But having that focus of being able to get into properties and provide that support where it's needed. Your other question was about homelessness. That's 277 presentations in Q1 across Highland. The bulk of those were presenting in Inverness. When you're talking about Housing First, the Housing First initiative has a small targeted group of folk that they focus on, and so there is a team that works very closely with that targeted group who really require more intensive support. And the idea is with that smaller focused group that they will be moved into permanent housing either immediately or as soon as possible after presentation with a package of support across a range of agencies that are involved in the Housing First model. I can ask my colleague Lewis Hanna to provide some information to you about the Housing First response, and as well as the rapid rehousing plans as well, if you like. In terms of how those figures manifest across Dingwall and Seaforth, well, if you look at the graph just underneath that 8.4, there were 47 presentations across Ross and Cromarty in the quarter. Probably a fair proportion, maybe half would, off the top of my head, would be being managed within Dingwall and Seaforth, and a fair proportion of those will have been immediately put into temporary housing as well in that area.
Thank you, Rory.
Thank you. Can I ask the rest of my question, Chair? Sorry.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. No, my next was, I know that it's not in here, but we have said before, and I would like to reiterate it again, how good the housing staff are, you know, and especially through COVID. And that was one of the reasons I was asking about checking up on people. So it's not just been done through Highland Council's humanitarian hub, it's also a number of your housing officers have been phoning and checking on some of our vulnerable tenants and just checking that they're okay and making sure that, you know, they've had somebody to talk to that week. And I would like to thank, you know, your staff for doing that. Over the last few months, they've also been trying to create a tenants group in one of our communities, and you know, that seems to be going well. There's been a couple of meetings of the group, and I think I attended the first kind of get together, which was a walkabout, and what came out of that very clearly was that if tenants want to engage with Highland Council, they want a response and they want to feel that they're being listened to, which also goes back to what Councillor Mackenzie said about community empowerment and listening to what people have to say. So I think that as we go forward as an area committee, it would be good perhaps in future to have some representatives of these groups maybe chat to us directly. But I want to thank your staff for that, and also for their work in Meikofield as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. I'm sure we would all share in thanking the team. Rory. Alistair, your hand was up and then away again. Are you wanting to come in?
Thanks, Chair. No, it was just following on from what Angela was saying. Just to, I think the sooner that we can get some method in our staff involved in house inspections, yes, it would be certainly would be a spend to save, because we've seen it down through the years that when houses are vacated, and it costs an absolute fortune for us to deal with it, and we have no recourse on them. So, I mean, if you go into a private tenancy, you get quarterly inspections. I'm not saying we go down to that, but and I think if this was put in, and I know you have to, you probably have to change tenancy agreements and things like that. But if people knew that there'd be an inspection coming, I think some of them might look after their properties a bit better, because just now there is no financial gain for them, because they just go and some of them just rip it up, and then they get another house somewhere else, and we're left to carry the can, and that is to the detriment of other projects that can be undertaken.
Yeah, I think I could only endorse those comments. I can't see why it would be a detrimental step at all, and could save us a lot of money. Rory, you want to come back on that one, or?
Yeah, I'll just to reiterate what I said, we will focus on going forward as we come out of lockdown on getting into some of our more vulnerable tenants' properties. But Yeah, I'm keen that our housing staff, and for the reasons that Councillor McLean outlined earlier around, the way they're increasing their positive interaction with the community and tenants, I'm keen that they get out and about in amongst our tenancies. And it's also, there's a range of reasons to get into a property that are not just around the property and asset management side of things. It's about identifying your vulnerabilities and what support we can put in place for people as well. But I will take that on board and see what we can do within existing resources around that. And I see Colin's keen to come in on that point too.
Yes, thank you very much. What we're also trying to do is we're trying to empower our trade staff and subcontractors when they're in our tenanted properties carrying out repairs to flag if they have concerns over how that tenant is living within the property. A lot of them see it as part of their duty to do so, but some trades are, well, my job is just to go in and fix things, it's not to comment. But we're just, again, trying to reiterate that we're not asking them to do anything other than flag their concerns, and other areas of the service would then take that forward. So it's something else we're working towards. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. That seems eminently sensible. Mark?
It's just a really quick point, Graham, just to touch on the point that Colin was just raising, which is a really good point. I think the key here is making sure, as far as is practically possible, that we are getting access into the property at least once a year, however that might come about, whether that's about targeted specific visit from a housing officer to someone who's clearly vulnerable or suspected as being vulnerable, or taking the opportunities presented by other visits that take place. And the kind of thing that Colin was talking about actually has a range of potential uses. So housing and trade staff that are going in and out of properties not only look at the condition, how the tenant's managing, but in other authorities such as the one I was at before I came here, we also trained them in just the basic principles of safeguarding. So to be aware of any challenges that they might be seeing in terms of how a tenant presents, are they suffering from domestic violence, for example, other issues in relation to potential child protection issues, at the very, very light level, more to the point of saying, do you know, if something doesn't look right to you, trust your judgment and come back and have a conversation with someone. That's all we're asking you to do. We're not asking you to grass anybody up or to become a social worker kind of thing, but just trust your judgment. If it doesn't look right, have a conversation. And it's that kind of thing that actually makes a real difference. So we can find a way in most circumstances to make sure that we pick these things up through regular ongoing visits, rather than necessarily saying, do you know what, every 6 months or every 12 months we will come around and do a specific visit, because that could become quite resource intensive. But I'm sure that Rory and Colin, and indeed David and I, can take that away and put some flesh in the bones of it. But actually, I just wanted to add to Colin's point, because it's a really good point, well made. Thank you, Graham.
No, that's fine, Mark. I think that makes an awful lot of sense. And maybe at a future committee we could have some sort of, not a report as such, but an indication of how close we get to visiting houses at least once a year. I don't know if that were possible, but it would certainly provide some comfort if the percentage was fairly high.
I would think repairs data would be one way of doing that. So we could look at job lines that have been raised against a property over a year, so that would tell us straight away if we'd at least been in those properties. On that basis, and I'm assuming within our housing management package there's an opportunity to put case notes on that indicate what type of visits or contact have been made with tenants, so we can take that away and find a way of how can we interrogate our database to show number of visits to a property and type of visit, reason for visit, etc. We might need to give that a wee bit of thought and bring it back at a later date, but I don't think this would be the only committee that would be interested in that data. So it would be useful going forward for us, because quite apart from anything else, one of the good indicators of whether or not there's a problem potentially at an address is looking at the repairs history. So if you look at the repairs history of a property, and that's the fourth window and the third front door that's gone in 2 years, you might want to be thinking about, is there a significant issue going on here? So actually repairs data can be very helpful as an intelligence tool as much as anything else. But we'll bring that back, Graham, if that's okay to...
No, that's great. That sounds very encouraging. Thank you for that, gentlemen. Rory, I think you can take back that one thing the members are united on is the difficult circumstances your team have been working under since pandemic started, and we're very grateful for that good work and the way in which they engage with our clients. So if you would pass that on, we'd be very grateful. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Moving on then, agenda item 7. Sorry, I keep forgetting the recommendations here. Committee is invited to scrutinise the information provided in housing performance in the period from 30th of June 2021. Okay, agenda item 7, Dingwall and Seaforth Housing Revenue Account Capital Programme 21-22. Is that back to you, Rory? Or who?
I'll introduce it, Chair, if that's okay. It's Jonathan here.
Jonathan.
All right, Jonathan. Okay, on you go.
Thank you. Thanks, members, for the opportunity to present this paper today. It follows on from previous discussions we've had, and also information that's been circulated around. And this has obviously been the first opportunity to bring the capital programme for this year to committee. I'll just highlight a couple of things. Section 5 outlines the principles we followed in terms of putting together the programme, and also the resources available to the area, along with the methodology that's been worked out by. Section 7, just a brief update on impact on the delays that we've experienced, and we're coming out of that now and making good progress against the programme. I think Appendix 1 just really details the plan in front of you. And also, I would say that slightly different to discussion that you've just had there, we are going to be able to disaggregate the spend and present that spend as an appendix to the housing performance report each time committee meets. So I'm pleased that we're able to do that. We've been working in the background with finance just to be sure that we can report on that detail. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. I think that is certainly very good news in terms of disaggregation. I think we all welcome that and hope it applies to almost all of the reports we get in due course. Margaret.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Jonathan. That's a very good report. Just a couple of questions on page 82. You know, when you say windows and doors replacement, I'd be quite interested to know how many houses we actually have in Dees Avenue and McIntyre Place, because when it says windows and doors replacement, Dees Avenue is quite a big area, but quite a number of the houses are now privately owned. So it'd be quite a good idea if we knew how many were actually going to be replaced out of the amount of money we've got. And you know where you say is one-off kitchens and bathroom replacements, is that just one bathroom and kitchen replacement, or is that quite a few? And it's the same with the one-off heating. Is that amount for quite a few houses getting heating, or just one? And the other one was to say that the environmental improvements, I think that is always super money being spent, because we can, I mean, Angela and I have been quite a few walkabouts where it's only something that really doesn't fit anything like on this list, and that we can get it done, and it absolutely changes you know, the community of that area, because it makes it a more pleasant place to live, even if it's just getting rid of bushes that are making the place look ugly. I think that was, oh, and I also want to ask, like, you know, when you replace kitchens, and then you've got to maybe go back in because they're wrecked. How do you cope with that if it's not due for replacement, and it's the people that's actually living there that have, you know, made a mess of it? Because I hear people saying, oh, they've had their kitchen replaced and it's not that long since they had replaced it before. And I just wondered how we deal with that, because I'm sure that must happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. I'll hand back to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Yeah, a couple of things there then. So in terms of the windows and doors replacements, that is all the properties we have in Dees Avenue and in McIntyre Place. So it's roughly about 48 in total. I was just hastily trying to get the numbers for you there. So that's the plan. So anything that we own in those two streets will be getting carried out. In terms of the one-off budgets, it's funny because it actually links to your final question. The one-off budgets are for things that happen that we hadn't planned for, or that we didn't know were going to happen. So the one-off kitchens and one-off bathrooms, that is for a number of installations. So it's not just one. Same goes with heating as well. That's for unplanned. I suppose it's planning for the unplanned, or however you might want to phrase it. But it again links to your third point, which was about maybe situations which come up, which we hadn't planned for, and perhaps things are having to be replaced sooner than we would have planned or budgeted for. But I think it actually in a way relates back to, and I'm pleased I listened to the previous discussion and debate about inspections, because it links back to that. So my hope would be that we continue that conversation, and we get better information and intelligence through, and are able to maybe pick up on things at an earlier stage, maybe where things were deteriorating, and we could intervene and then try and avoid the need to replace something down the line. But I think also we do follow certain principles when we're planning for replacement around life cycle of elements and stuff like that. But not necessarily for kitchens and bathrooms, but things like windows, for instance, they do fare differently in different areas. So having a standard 30-year replacement cycle doesn't necessarily mean that on the West Coast, in a conservation area, you're not going to be replacing the wooden windows at 15 years just because of the nature of the environment in the area. So we do have those principles, we do follow them, but I think I'd like to add my support to that discussion about inspections, both from an asset management point of view and also from a tenant perspective as well. Just to, I think we get a lot of value out of that, and hopefully save quite a bit of money in doing so as well.
Thank you, Jonathan. I see Mark with his hand up there. Come on, Mark.
Just a sort of supplemental point to the one that Jonathan's making. I mean, he's right. You do have a assumed asset lives for various different components of a building, but that's not the sort of sole response. So I mean, he's absolutely right. Again, the visits does have the purpose of also enabling us to form a view of properties that do require investment or key assets changed out. I think one of the two other very quick points to make, though, that's the whole purpose behind having stock condition surveys that are done on a rotational basis over a period of, say, I mean, opinions vary, but anything across between every 8 and 12 years across the whole of the estate, so that we can actually look at what the condition of the property is, but we have the accurate, up-to-date data as well as the repairs data that enables us then to form a view about what the forward capital programme should be for future years. So that does very much plug into this, and it's worth highlighting perhaps that some of you be familiar with the asset rationalisation programme that's going on in relation to general fund buildings. And what we'll be looking at in terms of the council housing stock is to just do an assessment of actually where are we at in terms of what we know about the condition of our stock and what our current capital programme focus is looking like, and to what extent is that actually necessarily the correct way to do it going forward, and what opportunities are there for us to invest in properties in a different way, or indeed to address some of the challenges that you've also had locally in terms of disinvestment, to be nice about it, or indeed demolition of stock that just simply no longer makes any economic rational sense to justify investing in. So that would be a piece of work, again, I think you'll all be very interested in as local members as we go forward over the next couple of years, and just about to kick that process off in the next month or two, about gathering the data for that and getting, I suppose, under the bonnet of the housing revenue account in more detail. Again, it sort of builds on the points that Jonathan was saying, but it's giving you a little heads up about some of the strategic long-term thinking and projects that we'll be bringing forward. Thanks, Graham.
Well, thank you once again. Members, any further points, any questions or queries? Okay then, just thanks to you, Jonathan, and to you, Mark. That was helpful, and we look forward to getting more reporting strategies at future meetings. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Members were asked to, invited to look at the notes there, note the allocation of resources, note the guideline investment, agree the proposed one-year deal, note the proposal position relating to the current year HRA capital programme, and note that updates on the HRA capital programme will continue to be provided through ward briefings. Okay with that?
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 8, winter maintenance plan 2021-22. Unfortunately, it's time of the year to have another look at that. So Ian, can you update us on that programme? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly, Chair. Yeah, winter's coming round again. As the Ross and Cromarty is now split up into 4 committees, I've disaggregated my winter maintenance reports into 4 separate reports, each corresponding to the committee area. Essentially, the are the same. It's really the length of the in each area. Dingwall and Seaforth, there's 35 kilometres of primary route, which is roughly 27% of the network. Secondary routes are 58 kilometres, and that equates to 45%. And there's approximately 35 kilometres of other routes, which is 28%. The winter for the last couple of years has been operated in 2 halves across Ross and Cromarty, the east and the west group. And the east group consists of the winter services being provided by Greenhill, Tane and Allness depots. We've got 2 road officers in the area. They take turnabout on the duty, making the forecast decision and then organising the men. Within the Dingwall and Seaforth area, the service is provided from Greenhill depot. We have we have 9 operatives, a foreman and my road officer based at Greenhill with 6 gritters there. Essentially, it's the same service, the same routes. I've just disaggregated it into the separate areas. And I'll be pleased to take any questions, Councillor.
Thank you, Ian. First question that springs to my mind is you mentioned the Dingwall office and the Greenhill depot. Are we up to speed in terms of the recruitment for those posts?
We have just lost our foreman. He's shortly going to be leaving us. We're going to be putting out an acting foreman's job this week, and we'll be putting in an ATR for his position to be made permanent shortly. I believe that's us fully up to establishment levels.
Okay, thank you for that. Angela?
Yeah, thank you, Ian. So this is us getting ready for winter. So we've got, what, 4 weeks left of summer, as it were, before you
yes.
before winter hits us. And thanks for the report. And you say in it that Dingwall and Seaforth have 6 gritters, but the gritters, they'll be shared with the other areas as well. I take it they're not specifically just for Dingwall and Seaforth. And the other is it mentions about the spare. We don't have any spare gritters. Quite often, once they start being used, they do break down. So I just want to check, is the maintenance of the gritters all up to date? Because it's quite often frustrating for your staff as well if they're not able to get out and grit, and it gives the council a bad name. That was at, I think, point 12, and paragraph 14, you're talking about grit bins, community support, winter resilience, and you mentioned the council will press office are involved. And I wondered, given that although it's supposed to be summer, although it doesn't look like it when I'm looking out my window, that winter is literally just round the corner. When will that communication start? Because through the council's humanitarian hub, we came across a lot of people in the community, volunteers that were able to help. And as community councils only meet maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks, do you know when that discussion with the community councils on winter resilience is going to start? Thanks.
Yeah. Chair, shall I take all the questions or just answer them as they come?
Just that's the only hand I have at the moment, Ian. So
okay,
off you go.
Yeah. Okay. The 6 gritters that I've listed there are for the Dingwall and Seaforth areas. There are other gritters at Green Hill, but they also have to cover the Black Isle routes. They are spare gritters across the Highland Council, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have a spare gritter at any one particular depot at any one particular time. We had a situation last year where over in the west they were down to 1 gritter in Loch Elsh area, and I believe for the next morning there was 2 gritters provided by fleet from other areas across the Highland Council. I should say that although it's this report is for Dingwall and Seaforth, we are still Ross and Cromarty. If there's a problem in the Greenhill depot, the first protocol would be to look at the other East Group depots in Tain and Old Ness. We would then sort of like start to look at pulling resources in from the west, and finally, if we still didn't have enough resources, we would be looking at pulling in resources from adjacent areas such as Inverness or Sutherland. Of course, we would also use contractors. We've got several contractors that we've used in the past under extreme snowfall. Maintenance of gritters, that's always a thorny issue. Before winter starts, all our fleet are checked over by fleet, and the actual spinners where the grit comes out of at the back, they're all calibrated. But modern vehicles are not really designed for winter operations. What we find quite a bit is that the snow gets packed near the brakes. That creates a fault in the sensor, and the engine management light comes on. The driver, by law, has to pull into the nearest safe place to park, and we then phone fleet. By the time fleet come out to have a look, quite often the snow's melted and the engine management light has gone off. That seems to be a common problem. It's in the good old days, we had ex-army Bedford lorries where there was absolutely minimal electrics and electronics, but we are where we are with the modern fleet. Grit bins and winter resilience. I would have to come back to you on when that communication will be going out. I don't have a date yet, but we will be working with, as we've done in the past, with community groups and providing grit bins and snow shovels and manual salt spreaders. I think that's all the points that were raised.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I think that your staff did a great job of responding to requests for grit bins last winter. I recall a number of occasions when they were asked for and provided, but it did seem to be quite well on into the start of the winter period before the grit bins were filled. And it would be good to avoid that again this year if we could have it. So I'm comfortable with you bringing us back a date for that to commence. Any other questions, members? Okay. We are invited to approve the winter maintenance plan for Dingwall. Angela.
Sorry, I was a wee bit late there. I just would like to pass on my thanks to your foreman, Ian, over his many years of service and working in really difficult conditions, and I wish him well in his new post.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor McLean. I'll certainly pass that on. Whilst it's a sad day to be losing Alan at Greenhill, we're not going to see the last of him because he's moving to Fleet as a mechanic. So he won't be at Greenhill, but he'll certainly be about. But I'll pass.
It sounds as if he won't be short of work either.
No, he'll be fixing the gritters.
That's true, yes.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. Moving on then, agenda item 9, which I think is also yours.
Oh, no.
Area Capital Programme 21-22 Progress Report.
Yeah. Firstly, can I perhaps give you an update on the progress, because since writing that report, it's now a little bit obsolete.
Okay.
Just to start at the top of the list, Connon House Highfield Park was completed. Mulbury and Highfield Road, 2 sections there are also done. Station Road should be completed by the 20th, the end of this week. That is weather dependent. I mean, if the weather holds, it should be completed by the end of this week. Riverford Crescent Drive and Ellis Park's been completed. The distillery bends at the Muir of Ord. We have a start date from Parkman Rose for around about the end of October. Don't have anything more specific than that. We're probably looking at a nighttime working, and we may need a road closure to avoid HGVs getting stuck, because there isn't any other way out for HGV vehicles. Principally because of you've got the weight limit on the Moy Bridge and the weight limit on the wee road at Urry Church. Clearly, we'll have to be going to the quarry and the distillery and advising them of the works, and hopefully we can avoid any impact. Knockfarrell and Broomhill, we're putting a screed coat and surface dressing down, and that should be starting next week. The St Andrews Road completed. The back road partially completed. We had new felt in there to do permanent patching, and there's 2 gullies remaining to be lifted. MacDonald Road, it's part done. The flood affected section has been done. With Alan going, we've put another operative onto a paver, which has been run by a contractor just now for training, and then he'll be taking over on MacDonald Road to finish it off once we get a break in the surface dressing. The same also applies for Clooney Road. McCrae Road is out to contractor. We've not had a start date back. Sorry?
McCrae Grove, it says completed.
Oh, my apologies for that. McCrae Road, it's on my spreadsheet, is out to a contractor.
No, is it not completed, Ian?
Well, okay, sorry, maybe my report.
McCrae Road and McCrae Grove, they're completed.
Can I come back to you just to confirm that, councillors?
Okay.
Yeah. In Jubilee Park Road, we've had new felt in there patching, on permanent patching, but there's some larger sections that are going to require an inlay. So I'm going to have to get a contractor organised for that. What else do we have? Seaforth Road, Muir of Ord, it's going to have to go out to contractor. Windsor Place, again, is going to be a contractor, and that might be at the end of the season. Sorry, at the end of the winter season, depending on availability of contractors. it's getting very difficult now to get a contractor on site. It's just that their order books are full up. Loch Hussey, again, that's looking at the DLO and the contractor availability. If the weather holds for longer and we can get it done before winter starts, then that's fine. If not, it may have to happen at the end of winter. Dees Avenue, we've had new fault patching in there from last Thursday, and we've had patching in general around the area. And in particular, new fault has been into Proby Street, Top Street, Urquhart Road and Firth View. That's all completed. Apologies for the any confusion between Macrae Road and Grove. It's a kind of a fast-moving scenario, and I'd obviously updated my committee report and not updated my spreadsheet. Apologies for that.
That's fine. Just one you missed out, and it's one I get a lot of calls about. So what's the situation with Woodlands Road? Have we got a date from McNeil for starting that?
Woodlands Road, no, I'm still waiting on a start date for that, but I can come back. I can come back to you with that, Councillor.
Yeah, that'd be good, because as I say, it's the one I get most comments on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that answered most of the questions I had for you in terms of update. Yeah. I have Margaret, followed by Alistair.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, same as you, Woodlands Road, and it is, as we were both up there one day. When I walk back, it's horrendous, and people are really upset waiting to get the work done. So I'm glad that you're pushing it. You've answered most of them. Station Road, I hope it's sincerely finished by the end of the week, because that'd be great. The Distillery Bains, I'm delighted that work's going to be started there in October, because the amount of complaints that there's just this little last while, the amount of complaints about it. So that really needs to get done. Knockfarrell next week, that's great. And Broomhill. And what was the other one? MacDonald Road. I don't think you give me a time scale for that. You did say contractor required for completion, but was it not going to be the same contractor that did most of the work on it? I thought they were coming back to finish it. Maybe that's wrong.
It's trying to get contractors tied down and just to come back. That's the basic problem.
Well, it's a bit disappointing, because I know it had to, the workmen had to they were taken away because of an emergency, but we were told that, within about a week they'd be back to finish it. Yeah. And that was quite a while ago. Jubilee Park Road, I'll be pleased to see that, especially now that the football's back on, because the amount of vehicles that are now using the road and the football academy and the caravan site, and it really needs work done to it. Woodlands Road, worried about Loch Hussey, because really, if we can't do work after winter, we have to make sure that the huge potholes and that are filled in, and because there are so many people that use the road up to Loch Hussey. It's the amount of houses that have gone up there this last while, and it's very busy, and it really is bad. So thank you for that, Ian, and thank to everyone that's working very hard to get these done. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Margaret. Alistair?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Ian, and I would endorse Margaret's comments there, just to thank your team for all their hard work. Genuinely, it is very, very much appreciated. I didn't
quite catch Seaforth Road. Seaforth Road is one that I get a lot of complaints about, and it is in a dreadful state in Muiravoord. Just when was that one on the agenda? Like Margaret, I get a lot about the distillery bins, and I'm glad that it's been using it. Having said that, the distillery bins won't really affect the distillery because it's on the Uri side of the distillery. So technically, it'll just be the quarry that we would have to watch out on. But as I say, Ian, thank you to you and your team for the fantastic work they've done in getting us to where we are. Thank you. But if you could just maybe come back to me with Seaforth Road and Muiravoord. Thanks.
Yeah, we're going to have to put Seaforth Road out to contractor. I don't have any more information at present, but can I perhaps come back with more information on both the Woodlands Road start date and also the Seaforth Road?
That's fine, Ian. Thank you very much. Angela?
Sorry, I just wanted to seek some clarification there. Woodlands Road, it's the pavements that are being done. It's just that the conversation so far has said the road, and I just wanted to double check it's the pavements. And I'm glad that Windsor Place is on it because it is, and I know it's at the end, because it is in such poor state.
Yes, it was my, although it's Woodlands Road, it was the pavements that were going to be done. And Windsor Place, the schemes that were put on earlier have had a better chance of being delivered. The later schemes, because of the contractor availability and laterally with Alan leaving, are more of a risk of being done before the start of winter. So we just have to try and take the resources we have and the contractor availability and work with that. Schemes that don't get done before the start of winter, we can pick up at the end of winter as well.
Thanks, Ian. Just at the point of being a complete bore, can I just return to McDonald Road, because they had actually started, and the residents there were very understanding of the medical emergency that you responded to, and I think we all supported that. But it would be a great pity for them to find that magnanimity, if you like, results in it not being repaired before winter. So if you could give us some sort of assurance that will be. I think the last time you were with us, you told us that McDonald Road and the Station Road were your two biggest priorities. I just want to be reassured that that's still the case.
That is still the case, Councillor Mackenzie. Just to give you some more detail on that, one of my operatives, Ian McDonald from Greenhill, is joining Chris from Ace Surfacing on their paver for training. And then once he has, in the past, he's acted as the foreman. Some of you may already know him. He left the council, he came back to us, and he's a possible candidate for acting up in the interim as the foreman when Alan leaves. Ian has already had experience in laying tar, so this isn't a complete novelty for him. It's just a quick refresher course. He was in the past, he was the screwman who used to lift and lower the paver depending on whether you wanted 40, 45 or 50 or 60 mil of tar. So he's been on the paver before, but this time he's operating it in a different capacity. Once he's had a refresher, and then he's coming back to McDonald Road with the paver when we get a break in the surface dressing. Now the surface dressing should be nearing completion within the next maybe 2 weeks, and then it's back to surfacing. So I can't give an exact date when McDonald Road is going to be restarted, but hopefully that gives you some reassurance that it does remain on the priority list. And as soon as we get surface dressing over, then it's going back to to MacDonald Road.
That's good news. Thank you, Ian, and thanks for the report. We certainly seem to have made a lot of progress over the course of the summer, and I think we're all very grateful for that. And I think to us as members, it probably justifies the more concentrated approach that we're taking as a single area committee, and we're grateful for your cooperation and all of that, and thankful to your team. We invited the recommendations are there in front of you. Agenda item 9, can we note the progress, approve the proposed 21-22 programme and approve the additional capital schemes funded from the capital budget?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on then to Dingwall Common Good Fund. A lengthy report, no doubt, Di. Can I hand over to you?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing more to add than what's in the report, and the appendices show the period to June 2021. Just to ask members to scrutinise and note the Q1 monitoring report for Dingwall Common Good Fund.
Can we agree that, members? Thank
you. Agreed.
Thanks
to Di.
As always. Moving on to minutes, we're asked to note those. Before we do, can I just say that there's 2 items, if I recall correctly. There's the St Clement's School, Dingwall. I wonder if I can make a plea as chair, Di, that becomes a staple diet on our area committee meetings, and it comes up each and every committee we have until we're in a position where we start seeing feet in the ground.
No, I think that was what we agreed with the Parent Council, Chair. You're absolutely right.
And the other one is, somewhere in here it mentions garages, and over the summer that's become a real bugbear for me, and I'd like to see a report coming to committee that indicates the number of garages we have in the ward, how many of them are actually let, what the plan is for the rest of them. Because there's 2 things. One is we could be making a lot of money out of this, and I'm told there is a need for it. But if they're broken beyond repair and whatnot, then they could be flattened, and we could have additional parking in our council estates where I think we would all agree it's very, very badly needed. So I think that's my plea, Di, or Alison, whoever is there. St Clement's and a report on the garages.
I think a report on the garages is due to come in November. I think that's organised, so yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Margaret.
Yeah, thank you very much. I had that one marked as well, but the other one that I had marked was St Clement's. But the very last one, members queried the ownership of the railway bridge and whether there was likely to be objections to the site from the owners of the bridge. You know, sometimes we discuss things and it says the committee noted the report, but we do ask a question, but we don't get it answered unless we ask again. So I don't know who's going to answer it. I always thought that it was the railway bridge, and because when they replaced it, it was Scottish, it was Rail Track or whoever, but the council put some money into it to make it 2-way, because it was only single, and they were only going to replace it with a single bridge. And Charlie King was chair of the committee then, and I managed to get that, you know, money to make it 2-way. So I don't know who does own it. I would say it would be Rail Track. So, but I think
we can look into
someone
that.
was supposed to be coming back to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Angela.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I think with our conversations with Scottish Water recently, Network Rail do have a responsibility for it. But I think that going forward, and it happened previously, there should be an officer should be taking an action log of any items that are outstanding, and so that we can make sure that they are investigated and come back to us as local members with an update. And maybe that's something we can look at in more detail. I would also be keen at some point, Chair, before you get to the minutes, for us to maybe look at what we would like to see on the agenda going forward, because we haven't had anything about young people and youth and the options available to them. We've been concentrating on the previous area committee too, very much on recovery and getting through the COVID concerns, but I think now that we're coming out of that, there's probably quite a number of issues that we've discussed as a ward in private that perhaps we should now get onto the agenda over the coming months. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Angela. That's a very good suggestion. Maybe, Di, if you could make sure that appears on our next ward business meeting for some discussion. Mark?
Thanks, Graham. Just a couple of quick points. St Clement's, as I know to my pleasure, I think, is that the right way of describing it, sits within my responsibility for delivering. So we were having a discussion actually this morning before I joined this meeting about where we were at in terms of budget, timeline, next steps to be taken, etc., etc. And I think that's with a view to that going forward into the next set of council papers anyway. But I'll certainly be able to give updates at each area committee in relation to the latest position on that as it goes forward. So that's that side of it. I think the other point I'd like to make is in relation to garages, you're quite right. You know, one of the challenges sometimes is, do they bring in enough to actually cover the cost of the repairs that are necessary, or actually is it uneconomical to actually invest in repairing or investing in certain types of garages? And sometimes the answer to that is yes. So there are a range of potential uses that can happen. We can either blow them up and allow for parking instead, or it may even in some cases allow opportunity for delivery of additional council housing units. So those options are being considered anyway. And then when I was talking earlier on, I talked about the long-term strategic view and the assessment of our assets that we have on the HRA and what the future investment or disinvestment needs might be. And that will also include a strategic overview of garages and garage sites and what they've cost us historically and what the future investment needs over the next 30 years might be. And that may also bring forward further recommendations for disposal or indeed investment in garages. So I'm pleased to hear that there's a report coming along in November. That's really good timing. And in the background, we'll be including garages as one of the sort of key packets of assets, for example, when we go forward with the sort of longer term strategic review of what we're doing with the HRA. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. That's helpful. I think that the St Clement's issue, we need to sit on top of this. We were told that the report would be back with us, or at least with the council, by the end of June. We're now heading towards the end of August. We haven't heard anything at all about what that report said and whether or not, in fact, the site is deemed to be feasible. So I think that there's a huge amount of frustration around what's happened with St Clement's, Mark. I know you're new to it, but this has been festering for an awful long time, and these sort of delays don't do anything to ease those frustrations.
No, I take the point fully on the chin, as it were. There's no problem with that at all. It is one of the 5 or 6 key schools that were identified for investment in the next phase of schools delivery. So at least it's in there and identified as a key project for delivery. And in the background, you know, the sooner we can get to a position where we're able to identify a suitable site and actually get spades in the ground for the sake of argument, then the better it will be all round. As I may be fairly recent to joining the council in the last 18 months, but I've heard quite loudly and clearly the frustrations of members across the council, as well as in this particular committee area, about the challenges of St Clement's. So it's very much one of my top priorities in terms of school delivery going forward.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. So can we note the minutes from the previous Black Isle committee meeting, Dingwall and Seaforth? Thank you. Members, can I thank you for the positive attitude you've taken to this first inaugural committee meeting this morning. I'm confident that we'll make a success of this going forward, and it'll be due to this sort of cooperation that I hope we're all capable of. So thanks very much to you all and to the officers for their support this morning.